mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, if one remains eternally young and if one can smile eternally, then one takes a great step towards transformation. When one is above the fetters of the ego and the desires, then one starts smiling. And when one aspires constantly to progress, when one can aspire constantly to progress, then one remains young. Here are the two sure means. Here are the two sure means to reach the goal. Don't waste time. Become an optimist and follow the direct path. There is no need to think. With love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. The Infinitesimal Infinite, written by our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Out of a still immensity we came. These million universes were to it the poor light bubbles of a trivial game, a fragile glimmer in the infinite. It could not find its soul in all that vast. It drew itself into a little speck, infinitesimal, ignobly cast out of earth's mud and slime, strangely awake, a tiny blossom upon a casual globe in the small system of a dwarf-like sun, a little life wearing the flesh for robe, a little mind winged through wide space to run. It lived, it knew, it saw its self sublime, deathless, outmeasuring space, outlasting time. From the Collective Works, Volume 2, page 589. Allowing the Lord to do it. Our Divine Mother says, you are faced with a so-called problem. What should you say? What should you do? How should you act? There is nothing to do, nothing. You only have to say to the Lord, there, you see, it is like that, that's all. And then you stay very quiet, and then quiet spontaneously, without thinking about it, without reflection, without calculation, nothing, without the slightest effort, you do what has to be done. That is to say, the Lord does it. It is no longer you. He does it. He arranges the circumstances. He arranges the people. He puts the words into your mouth or your pen. He does everything, 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 everything. You have nothing more to do but to allow yourself to live blissfully. I am more and more convinced that people do not really want it. But clearing the ground is difficult. The work of clearing the ground beforehand. Our Divine Mother says, but you don't even need to do it. He does it for you. Questions, sweet Mother, but they are constantly breaking in. The old consciousness, the old thoughts. For this, our Divine Mother says, yes, they try to come in again by habit. You only have to say, Lord, you see, you see, you see. It is like that, that's all. Lord, you see this, you see that, you see this fool, and it is all over immediately, and it changes automatically, my child, without the slightest effort. Our Divine Mother says, and it changes automatically, my child, without the slightest effort, simply to be sincere, that is to say, to truly want everything to be right. You're perfectly conscious that you can do nothing about it. You have no capacity. I feel more and more this amalgam of matter, like this of cells, all that is pitiful. It is pitiful. I do not know whether there are certain states in which people feel powerful, wonderful, luminous, capable. But for me, it is because they do not really know what they are like. When you really see how you are made, it is really nothing, nothing. But it is capable of everything, provided that you allow the Lord to act. But there is always something that wants to do it by itself. That's the trouble, otherwise. Our Divine Mother says, no, you may be full of excellent goodwill and then you want to do it. That's what complicates everything. Or else you don't have faith. You believe that the Lord will not be able to do it, that you must do it yourself because He doesn't know. This kind of stupidity is very common. How can He see things? We live in a world of falsehood. How can He see falsehood and see? Our Divine Mother says, but He sees the thing as it is exactly. I am not speaking of people of no intelligence. I am speaking of people who are intelligent, who try. There is a kind of conviction like that.
From the world to make final wisdom from force scattered plan and love and beauty out through war and night to wage one again begun.
Our Divine Mother says there is a kind of conviction like that somewhere, even in people who know that we live in a world of ignorance and falsehood, that there is a Lord who is all truth. They say precisely because He is all truth. He does not understand, and our Divine Mother laughs. He does not understand our falsehood. I must deal it myself. That is very strong, very common. We make complications for nothing, says our Divine Mother. Taken from the book Living Words, page 133. Our inmost being, the psychic being, a nucleus pregnant with divine possibilities. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the inner being, inner mind, inner vital, inner or subtle physical, knows much that is unknown to the outer mind, outer vital, outer physical, for it is in a more direct contact with the secret forces of nature. The psychic is the inmost being of all, a perception of truth which is inherent in the deepest substance of the consciousness, a sense of good, true, beautiful, the divine is its privilege. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, the psychic part of us is something that comes direct from the divine and is in touch with the divine. In its origin, it is the nucleus, pregnant with divine possibilities, that supports this lower triple manifestation of mind, life, and body. There is this divine element in all living things, but it stands hidden behind the ordinary consciousness, is not at first developed, and even when developed, is not always or often in front. It expresses itself so far as the imperfection of the instruments allows, by their means and under their limitations. It grows in the consciousness by Godward experience, gaining strength every time there is a higher moment in us. And finally, by the accumulation of these deeper and higher moments, there is developed a psychic individuality, that which we call usually the psychic being. It is always this psychic being that is the real, though often the secret cause of man's turning to the spiritual life and his greatest help in it. It is therefore that which we have to bring from behind to the front in the integral yoga. The psychic is the soul or the spark of the divine fire, supporting the individual evolution on the earth, and the psychic being is the soul consciousness developing itself, or rather its manifestation, from life to life with the mind, vital, and body as its instruments until all is ready for the union with the divine. And Lord Sri Aurobindo says, the pure self is unborn, does not pass through death or birth, is independent of birth or body or mind or life or this manifested nature. It is not bound by these things, not limited, not affected, even though it assumes and supports them. The soul, on the contrary, is something that comes down into birth and passes through death, although it does not itself die, for it is immortal, from one state to another, from the earth plane to other planes and back again to the earth existence. It goes on with this progression from life to life through an evolution which leads it up to the human state and evolves it all through a being of itself which we call the psychic being, that supports the evolution and develops a physical, vital, mental human consciousness as its instruments of world experience and of a disguised, imperfect but growing self-expression. All this it does from behind the wheel, showing something of its divine self only in so far as the imperfection of the instrumental being will allow it. But a time comes, says our Lord, but a time comes when it is able to prepare to overcome from behind the wheel, to take command and turn all the instrumental nature towards a divine fulfillment. This is the beginning of the true spiritual life. The soul is able now to make itself ready for a higher evolution of manifested consciousness than the mental human. It can pass from the mental to the spiritual and through degrees of the spiritual to the supramental state. Till then, there is no reason why it should cease from birth. It cannot, in fact, do so. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, the center of the psychic being is behind the center of the emotional being. It is the emotional that is nearest dynamically to the psychic, and in most men it is through the emotional center that the psychic can be most easily reached, and through the psychicized emotion that it can be most easily expressed. Many therefore mistake the one for the other, but there is a world of difference between the two. The emotions normally are vital in their character and not part of the psychic nature. The psychic being and the divine presence in the heart are quite different things. The psychic being is one's own individual soul being. It is not the divine, though it has come from the divine and develops towards the divine. Taken from SABCL, that's volume 22, page 269, 288, 291, 438, 339, 298. These are the words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo and our Divine Mother.